Arrogant bikers surround a woman's car, her move leaves them begging for forgiveness. The Iron Reapers, a notorious biker gang, lounged outside Rusty's auto shop, their leather-clad forms casting long shadows in the fading light. Cole Maddox, the gang's leader, sat astride his custom Harley, surveying his crew with a sense of satisfaction. They ruled these streets, and everyone knew it. As the sun dipped below the horizon, a sleek black car rolled to a stop at the nearby red light. Cole's eyes narrowed as he caught sight of the driver, a lone woman, her features obscured by the tinted windows. He revved his engine, a predatory grin spreading across his face. "Boys, looks like we got ourselves some fresh meat," he called out, his voice cutting through the evening air. The gang members perked up, their attention drawn to the idling vehicle. They began to circle the car, their movements slow and deliberate, like wolves stalking their prey. Tapping on the windows with their ringed fingers, they leered at the woman inside, their faces twisted into cruel sneers. Inside the car, Isla Vance gripped the steering wheel tightly, her knuckles turning white. She knew the Iron Reapers by reputation, a vicious gang that thrived on fear and intimidation. But Isla was no ordinary woman. Beneath her unassuming exterior, a lifetime of training and combat experience lay coiled, ready to spring into action. As the bikers continued their taunts, Isla took a deep breath, centering herself. She had faced far worse than a gang of two-bit thugs. With a fluid motion, she reached for the door handle, preparing to step out and confront her would-be assailants. Little did the Iron Reapers know, they had picked the wrong target. Isla Vance was about to teach them a lesson they would never forget, one that would shatter their illusions of power and leave them begging for forgiveness. The door of the black car swung open, and Isla Vance emerged, her movements precise and controlled. The bikers took a step back, momentarily caught off guard by her calm demeanor. They had expected fear, perhaps even a plea for mercy, but the woman standing before them exuded an aura of quiet confidence. Cole Maddox, however, wasn't one to back down easily. He swaggered forward, his lips curled into a mocking smile. Well, what do we have here?" he drawled, his eyes raking over Isla's form. "A pretty little thing like you shouldn't be out all alone at night." Isla met his gaze unflinchingly, her expression impassive. "I'm not looking for trouble," she said, her voice even. "Just let me pass, and we can all go about our business." The gang members exchanged amused glances, their laughter ringing out in the stillness of the night. Cole shook his head, his smile widening. "See, that's not how it works around here, sweetheart. These are our streets, and if you want to pass, you gotta pay the toll." He took another step forward, invading Isla's personal space. The other bikers closed in, their anticipation palpable. They had played this game before, using their numbers and brute strength to intimidate and extort. But as Cole reached out to grab Isla's arm, she moved with lightning speed. In a blur of motion, Isla sidestepped his grasp, her hand shooting out to seize his wrist. With a deft twist, she sent him stumbling backward, his eyes widening in shock. The other gang members froze, their mouths falling open in disbelief. Isla's stance shifted subtly, her weight balanced on the balls of her feet. "Last chance," she warned, her voice low and dangerous. "Walk away now, and we can forget this ever happened." But Cole Maddox was not a man accustomed to backing down. Rage contorted his features as he regained his footing, his pride wounded. He signaled to his crew, ready to teach this upstart a lesson she wouldn't soon forget. As the Iron Reapers closed in, Isla Vance remained perfectly still, her eyes scanning the group with the practiced ease of a seasoned warrior. She knew that the key to survival lay in assessing her opponents, identifying their weaknesses, and exploiting them without hesitation. Cole Maddox, still smarting from his earlier humiliation, lunged forward, his fists clenched and ready to strike. But Isla was faster. She ducked beneath his swinging arm, her own hand darting out to deliver a precise blow to his solar plexus. Cole staggered back, gasping for air, his face contorted in pain and rage. The other gang members hesitated, suddenly uncertain. They had never seen anyone, let alone a woman, stand up to their leader with such ease. But their loyalty to the gang was stronger than their doubts, and they surged forward, determined to overwhelm Isla with sheer numbers. Isla's movements were a blur, her body a whirlwind of controlled chaos. She struck with the speed and precision of a coiled snake, her blows landing with devastating accuracy. One by one, the bikers fell, their faces etched with a mixture of pain and disbelief. As the last of the gang members crumpled to the ground, Isla turned her attention back to Cole Maddox. The once arrogant leader was now on his knees, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He looked up at her, his eyes wide with fear and a dawning realization. Who are you?" he managed to choke out, his voice trembling. Isla regarded him coolly, her expression impassive. "Someone you should have never crossed," she replied, her words laced with a quiet menace. In the distance, the sound of police sirens began to wail, growing louder with each passing second. Isla glanced over her shoulder, then back at the fallen bikers. She knew that it was time to make her exit, to disappear into the night before the authorities arrived. With a final, warning look at Cole Maddox, Isla turned on her heel and strode back to her car, leaving the shattered remnants of the Iron Reapers in her wake. As Isla Vance slid back into her car, the weight of her hidden past seemed to settle upon her shoulders. She had spent years trying to escape the shadows of her former life, to build a new identity far from the violence and danger that had once defined her existence. But tonight, as she navigated the dark city streets, Isla couldn't help but feel a sense of grim satisfaction. The Iron Reapers had thought themselves untouchable, their reign of terror unchallenged. In a matter of minutes, she had shattered that illusion, leaving them broken and humiliated in the wake of her fury. As she drove, Isla's mind drifted back to her days as a combat specialist, a ghost in the service of forces she had once believed to be just. She had been a weapon, honed to a razor's edge, her skills unmatched in the shadowy world of covert operations. But the life of a soldier had taken its toll, the weight of her actions bearing down upon her soul. In the end, Isla had walked away, determined to forge a new path, to find a purpose beyond the endless cycle of violence and death. Now, as the flashing lights of police cars illuminated the night behind her, Isla knew that her past would never truly let her go. The Iron Reapers were just the latest in a long line of adversaries, a reminder that the world was full of darkness, and that sometimes the only way to fight it was to embrace the shadows within. But for now, Isla pushed those thoughts aside, focusing on the road ahead. She had a new life to protect, a fragile piece that she had fought hard to achieve. Whatever challenges lay in her future, she would face them with the same unwavering resolve that had carried her through countless battles. In the rearview mirror, the city lights faded into the distance, the echoes of the night's events already beginning to fade. Isla Vance, the woman with the custom-made axes and the unbreakable spirit, drove on, ready to face whatever the dawn might bring. Days turned into weeks, and the memory of Isla Vance's encounter with the Iron Reapers began to recede into the background of her life. She settled back into her daily routine, her work at the local community center providing a sense of purpose and connection that had long eluded her. But even as she focused on the present, Isla couldn't shake the feeling that her past was catching up with her. Late at night, as she lay in bed, her mind would drift to the darker corners of her memory, to the faces of those she had known and the choices she had made. It was during one of these restless nights that a knock at her door jolted Isla from her reverie. Instantly alert, she reached for the axes that were never far from her side, her senses honed by years of training and experience. Cautiously, Isla approached the door, her eyes scanning the dimly lit hallway beyond. Through the peephole, she caught sight of a familiar face, a man she had once known, a fellow soldier from her past. With a deep breath, Isla opened the door, her grip tight on the handle of her axe. "Marcus," she said, her voice low and guarded. "What are you doing here?" The man, Marcus, held up his hands in a gesture of peace, his eyes solemn. "I'm not here to fight, Isla," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I'm here because I need your help." Isla hesitated, her instincts warring with the curiosity that tugged at the edges of her mind. She had left that life behind, had sworn never to go back. But the look in Marcus's eyes, the urgency in his voice, told her that this was no ordinary request. With a sigh, Isla stepped back, allowing Marcus to enter. As she closed the door behind him, she couldn't shake the feeling that her carefully constructed world was about to be turned upside down once more, that the ghosts of her past had finally come calling, demanding to be reckoned with. Marcus settled onto Isla's couch, his shoulders slumped with exhaustion. Isla watched him carefully, her eyes searching for any sign of deceit or hidden motive. In their line of work, trust was a luxury few could afford. "Start talking," Isla said, her voice firm. "What's this all about, Marcus?" Marcus leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. "It's about the old team, Isla. About what happened after you left." Isla felt a flicker of unease, memories of her final mission resurfacing like shards of broken glass. "I put that life behind me," she said, her jaw tight. "Whatever happened, it's not my problem anymore." But Marcus shook his head, his expression grim. "It's not that simple, Isla. What we did, what they made us do, it's coming back to haunt us." He reached into his jacket, pulling out a battered manila envelope. With a trembling hand, he held it out to Isla, his eyes pleading. "I need you to take a look at this. It's bad, Isla. Really bad." Against her better judgment, Isla took the envelope, her fingers sliding over the worn paper. Inside, she found a stack of documents, the pages filled with redacted names and blacked-out lines. But what caught her eye were the photographs, grainy images of familiar faces, of people she had once called friends. "They're dead, Isla," Marcus whispered, his voice hollow. "All of them. And whoever's behind it, they're coming for us next." Isla felt a chill run down her spine, the weight of the revelation settling like a lead weight in her gut. She had thought she had escaped the shadows, had outrun the demons of her past. But now, as she stared at the evidence before her, she realized that the nightmare was far from over. "Tell me everything," Isla said, her voice low and determined. "Every detail, every name. If we're going to survive this, we need to stay one step ahead." And so, as the night wore on, Isla and Marcus began to plot their next move in a deadly game they had never wanted to play. In the days that followed, Isla and Marcus worked tirelessly to unravel the mystery behind the deaths of their former teammates. They pored over the documents, searching for clues, for any scrap of information that might lead them to the truth. But the more they dug, the more twisted the web became. Shadowy figures and cryptic messages, whispered rumors of government cover-ups and secret experiments. It was a labyrinth of lies and deceit, and Isla couldn't help but feel that they were running out of time. As they worked, Isla found herself drawn back into the world she had tried so hard to leave behind. The skills she had honed as a soldier, the instincts that had kept her alive in the most dangerous of situations, all came rushing back, like a flood of adrenaline coursing through her veins. But with each passing day, the danger grew more palpable. Strange cars parked outside her apartment, ominous phone calls in the middle of the night. Isla knew that they were being watched, that whoever was behind the murders was closing in. It was during one of these tense moments that Isla received an unexpected visitor. A young woman, barely out of her teens, with haunted eyes and a story to tell. She was the daughter of one of Isla's fallen comrades, a man who had died under mysterious circumstances years before. "He left me a message," the girl said, her voice trembling with fear and grief. "Before he died. He said that if anything happened to him, I should find you. That you were the only one who could help." Isla felt a surge of empathy, a connection to this lost and broken soul. She knew all too well the pain of losing someone, the anger and confusion that came with unanswered questions. "I'll do everything I can," Isla promised, her voice soft but firm. "For your father, and for all the others. We'll find out the truth, no matter what it takes." And with that, Isla and Marcus's mission took on a new urgency, a new purpose. They were no longer just fighting for their own survival, they were fighting for the memory of the fallen, for the chance to bring their killers to justice. As Isla and Marcus delved deeper into the mystery surrounding their former team, they found themselves drawn into a world of secrets and lies, of hidden agendas and shifting alliances. They chased down leads, followed trails of breadcrumbs, always staying one step ahead of the shadowy forces that seemed to be closing in from all sides. But even as they made progress, the toll of their mission began to weigh heavily upon them. Sleepless nights and constant vigilance, the strain of living in a perpetual state of fear and uncertainty. Isla could feel the cracks beginning to form, the edges of her carefully constructed facade starting to fray. It was during one of these moments of vulnerability that Isla found herself opening up to Marcus, sharing the burdens that she had carried for so long. She told him of the nightmares that haunted her sleep, of the faces of those she had killed in the name of duty and country. And to her surprise, Marcus understood. He too had struggled with the weight of his actions, had grappled with the moral ambiguity of the life they had chosen. In each other, they found a kinship, a shared sense of purpose that helped to stave off the darkness that threatened to consume them. But even as they grew closer, Isla couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. The enemies they faced were powerful and ruthless, with resources that far outstripped their own. Every move they made, every step they took, felt like a gamble, a roll of the dice in a game where the stakes could not be higher. And then, just when it seemed that all hope was lost, a breakthrough. A name, whispered in the shadows, a thread that led them to the heart of the conspiracy. Isla and Marcus knew that they were close, that the answers they sought were finally within their grasp. But as they prepared to make their final move, Isla couldn't shake the feeling that the greatest danger still lay ahead, that the true test of their resolve was yet to come. With a sense of grim determination, Isla and Marcus set out to confront the mastermind behind the murders of their former teammates. They had pieced together the clues, had followed the trail of corruption and deceit to its source, and now, they were ready to face the consequences of the truth they had uncovered. Their target was a man named Damian Blackwood, a shadowy figure with ties to the highest levels of government and industry. He was a puppet master, a man who pulled the strings from behind the scenes, manipulating events to suit his own twisted agenda. As they made their way through the labyrinthine halls of Blackwood's fortress-like compound, Isla and Marcus encountered resistance at every turn. Guards armed with high-tech weaponry, security systems that seemed to anticipate their every move. But they pressed on, driven by a sense of purpose that would not be denied. In the heart of Blackwood's lair, Isla and Marcus finally came face to face with the man himself. He was a study in contrasts, his refined exterior belying the malevolence that lurked within. With a smile that was all teeth and no warmth, he welcomed them, as if he had been expecting their arrival all along. "Isla Vance and Marcus Stone," he said, his voice smooth and cold as ice. "The last survivors of a failed experiment. I must admit, I'm impressed by your tenacity." Isla's grip tightened on her axis, her eyes narrowing as she stared down the man who had orchestrated so much death and suffering. "It ends here, Blackwood," she said, her voice steady despite the rage that coursed through her veins. "No more lies, no more secrets." But Blackwood merely laughed, a sound that sent chills down Isla's spine. "You have no idea what you've stumbled into," he said, his eyes glinting with a mad sort of glee. "The truth you seek, the answers you crave, they will destroy you." And with that, he unleashed his final gambit, a team of elite assassins, each one more deadly than the last. Isla and Marcus found themselves fighting for their lives, their every move a desperate bid for survival. As the battle raged around them, Isla could feel the weight of her past bearing down upon her, the ghosts of those she had lost urging her onward. She fought with a ferocity that surprised even herself, her axes singing through the air in a deadly symphony of steel and blood. In the end, it was Marcus who dealt the final blow, his bullet finding its mark between Blackwood's eyes. As the mastermind fell, the truth he had sought to conceal came spilling out, a cascade of revelations that left Isla and Marcus reeling. But even as they stood amidst the wreckage of their victory, Isla knew that their journey was far from over. The secrets they had uncovered would have far-reaching consequences, and the fight to bring those responsible to justice had only just begun. In the aftermath of their confrontation with Blackwood, Isla and Marcus found themselves thrust into the spotlight, their actions the subject of intense scrutiny from all sides. They were hailed as heroes by some, condemned as vigilantes by others, their every move dissected and analyzed by a hungry media machine. But for Isla, the attention was a small price to pay for the truth they had uncovered. The conspiracy they had unraveled went far beyond a few rogue agents and shadowy organizations. It was a rot that had spread to the very core of the system they had once sworn to protect. As they delved deeper into the web of corruption and deceit, Isla and Marcus found themselves facing new challenges at every turn. There were powerful people who wanted to keep the truth buried, who would stop at nothing to silence those who threatened to expose their secrets. But Isla refused to be cowed, refused to back down in the face of adversity. She had spent too long running from her past, too long hiding from the consequences of her actions. Now, she was determined to face them head-on, to fight for the justice that had been denied to so many. And she wasn't alone. As word of their exploits spread, Isla and Marcus found themselves joined by others who had been touched by the same darkness, who had lost loved ones to the same insidious forces. Together, they formed a coalition of the willing, a band of warriors united by a common cause. It was a long and arduous journey, fraught with danger and uncertainty. But slowly, surely, they began to make progress. They exposed the lies, brought the guilty to justice, and gave voice to the voiceless. And through it all, Isla found herself changed in ways she had never expected. The weight of her past still lingered, but it no longer defined her. She had found a new purpose, a new reason to fight, and in doing so, she had finally begun to heal the wounds that had haunted her for so long. As the truth behind the conspiracy came to light, Isla and Marcus found themselves at the center of a firestorm that threatened to consume everything they had fought for. There were powerful interests at work, factions that sought to bury the evidence, to discredit those who dared to speak out against the system. But Isla refused to be silenced. She had come too far, had sacrificed too much, to let the truth be buried once more. With Marcus by her side, she took the fight to the halls of power, to the very heart of the government that had betrayed them all. It was a battle unlike any they had faced before, a war waged not with guns and blades, but with words and ideas. They faced down corrupt politicians and crooked businessmen, exposed the lies and the backroom deals that had allowed the rot to fester for so long. And through it all, Isla found herself drawing strength from the people around her. From Marcus, whose unwavering loyalty and fierce determination had been her rock in the darkest of times. From the young woman whose father's death had set them on this path, and who now stood tall and proud, a beacon of hope for all those who had been touched by tragedy. Together, they built a movement, a groundswell of support that stretched from the streets of the city to the far-flung corners of the nation. They rallied the people, gave them a voice and a purpose, and showed them that they had the power to change the world. And change it they did. Slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. The guilty were brought to justice, the corrupt were driven from power, and a new era of transparency and accountability began to take hold. For Isla, it was a bittersweet victory. The scars of her past would never fully heal, the memories of those she had lost would always be with her. But she had found a new family, a new sense of belonging, and in doing so, she had finally found peace. In the years that followed, Isla and Marcus watched as the world around them began to change. The seeds they had planted, the battles they had fought, were finally bearing fruit. A new generation was rising, one that refused to be shackled by the lies and the half-truths of the past. For Isla, it was a time of reflection, of looking back on the long and winding road that had brought her to this moment. She thought of the people she had known, the friends she had lost, and the choices she had made along the way. And she knew, with a certainty that came from the very core of her being, that she would do it all again in a heartbeat. Because for all the pain and the heartache, for all the scars and the sleepless nights, she had found something that made it all worthwhile. She had found a purpose, a calling that went beyond the narrow confines of her own life. She had become a part of something greater than herself, a movement that would outlast them all. And so, as she looked to the future, Isla knew that her work was far from over. There would always be new battles to fight, new injustices to confront. But she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with the same fierce determination that had carried her through the darkest of times. She had Marcus by her side, a partner and a friend who understood her in a way that few others ever could. And she had the memory of those who had gone before, the fallen heroes whose sacrifice had paved the way for all that had come after. Together, they would keep fighting, keep pushing forward, until the day came when the world they had dreamed of was finally within their grasp. It was a long and difficult road, but Isla knew that it was one she was meant to walk. And so, with a heart full of hope and a spirit that could not be broken, Isla Vance stepped forward into the unknown, ready to face whatever the future might bring. Years turned into decades, and as Isla looked back on her life, she marveled at the twists and turns of fate that had brought her to this moment. She had started out as a soldier, a weapon forged in the fires of conflict and chaos. But somewhere along the way, she had become something more. She had become a leader, a beacon of hope for all those who had been touched by the same darkness that had once consumed her. She had become a force for change, a voice for the voiceless and a champion for the downtrodden. And through it all, she had never lost sight of the things that truly mattered. The bonds of friendship and loyalty, the unbreakable ties of family and community. These were the things that had sustained her, that had given her the strength to keep fighting even when all seemed lost. Now, as she looked out over the world she had helped to build, Isla felt a sense of peace wash over her. The road had been long and hard, the sacrifices many and great. But in the end, it had all been worth it. She thought of Marcus, of the love and the laughter they had shared, of the battles they had fought side by side. She thought of the young woman whose father's death had set them on this path, and who had grown into a leader in her own right. And she knew, with a certainty that came from the very depths of her soul, that she had made a difference. That the world was a better place for her having been in it. And so, as the sun began to set on her long and extraordinary life, Isla Vance looked to the horizon with a smile on her face and a song in her heart. She had lived, she had loved, and she had left behind a legacy that would endure long after she was gone.